believing that your spouse or your parent is lying to you, well, it's crushing. So it's a big relationship changer. When it seems your spouse or your parent is not telling you the truth, they may not be, but they may be telling you what they believe to be the truth. Welcome to Dementia Caring with Kerry, where there is a better way. This podcast will offer practical guidance, meaningful perspective, and I hope for families navigating dementia. I am your host, Kerry Mills. In each episode, we'll take one question, situation, or belief and look at it a little differently. I have seen that when we're able to change our perspective, it can actually change our situation. My aim at the end of each episode is to leave you with one thing to think about differently when it comes to loving your person with dementia. Shall we begin? So last week, just for a second, we talked about whether or not it's okay to lie to your spouse or your parent who has dementia, although we did focus heavily on the spouse side. And we really got into the fact that lying in a relationship is a real trust breaker. And so we talked about you as the person who doesn't have dementia, who loves somebody who does, and just the change that may make in you. And so today, I wanted to talk about a very similar issue, which is actually the question of why does my loved one with dementia now lie to me? So you can see how these are sort of hand in hand, and so I wanted to sort of bookend them. Today's episode is why does my loved one with dementia lie to me now? The first thing is that obviously believing that your spouse or your parent is lying to you, well, it's crushing. So it's a big relationship changer. I think we talked about this a lot last week, and I think the same issues actually apply here. That when somebody lies to you, it breaks down a part of that relationship that can also be really hard to get back. And so now you're grappling with the fact that your loved one, your spouse or your parent has dementia and all that's going to change for your life. And then to feel like they're lying to you on top of that, immediately it doesn't necessarily feel like, gee, the disease has taken them, but you say to yourself, my goodness, but now they're lying to me. Like, how much is going to change and how fast? And so I want to sort of break that apart today because there's actually a lot more going on, I assure you. And as I have had this conversation with so many people, especially spouses, but definitely spouses and children, they often take a deep breath and say, okay, now I understand. And I'm hoping that today you will be able to take that same deep breath. So I'm going to start with telling you guys a story that feels very unbelievable. I don't say it in any way to make you laugh, although there's parts of it that are kind of humorous. So I met a woman. She had come to me and she was talking with me about a family member that had dementia. And she said, my sister lives in an apartment by herself. And every time I go to visit her, there are stains on the floor and her apartment smells very bad. The reality is that these were bowel movement stains on the carpet. And when she asked her sister, what's going on here? What's happening? Her sister said, the dog just keeps doing this. And so I said, oh, okay, well I didn't understand the lie yet. And then her sister said, yes, but she doesn't have a dog. I said, oh, okay, I understand. So here she comes to me with this story about her sister, basically going to the bathroom on the carpet or having accidents on the carpet. And she was so upset that her sister wouldn't just admit it. So here's where I want to break things down, right? Her sister, the one who has dementia that was having this issue, she actually believed her version of the story. She wasn't trying to lie to her sister. She genuinely believed that this was obviously the reason that there were stains on the carpet, number one. Number two, what happens in the brain is that if you can't remember, this happens also for all of us, not just people who have dementia, but for people with dementia, sometimes it happens in a more what feels like dramatic or extreme way, is that the brain doesn't remember all the actual details. So what does it do? It fills it in. And the truth is that it fills it in with the most rational answers to explain the problem. And so if you look at this situation, you say, okay, yeah, so here's a woman who doesn't remember this happening, doesn't believe she is somebody that would ever do something like that. And so the most natural, logical question, she sees the problem. She sees that, yes, there's obviously stains on the floor and the place doesn't smell so good, but I wouldn't have been the one to do that, is her thinking. So she comes up with the most logical explanation. So in her mind, it isn't that she's lying about this. It's that she doesn't remember the truth. And so she's going with the truth that makes the most sense. Now, before we continue, I'd love to connect with you. Visit kerrymills.com to join my weekly emails for practical guidance, meaningful perspective, and hope for navigating dementia. While you're there, download your free Dementia Caregiver Compass. It will help you to pause, look again, and choose a next step that protects what matters most in your relationship. Now, let's get back to our conversation. So, using that example, which hopefully is not the case for most of the people who are listening, it's sort of an easy one to be able to pull some of the thoughts. But here's why this becomes really tricky. It would be one thing if you walked into your husband when he was eating in the kitchen and it was something simple like, he put the bowls in the wrong place. And while it might feel like a small lie, you can easily reason that one away. But the reason that these things usually matter is because they tend to come up about very serious, very important, and often costly matters. So it's when the bills don't get paid and then your spouse or your parent tries to say why they did get paid or why it wasn't their fault that they didn't get paid, right? This is now like we don't want the electric cut off type of serious. Or it's husband comes home and he's gotten into a fender bender and you ask what happened and he says, oh, somebody hit me in the parking lot at the store. And you're like, really? Really? That's what really happened? A shopping cart ran into the car. That's another pretty common reason that people say. And then all of a sudden you're left wondering, did he run into somebody? Did he hurt somebody? Am I going to get a call? What's going to happen to our insurance? Is somebody going to sue us? Like your brain goes to this place. It's very reasonable, but it's partly going there because it doesn't have the information. And the reality is you're probably not going to get the information because your loved one probably doesn't remember it to begin with. It's not often that the person's trying to hide it. It's that they don't remember the information to begin with. So again, right, they're going off of whatever feels like the most rational answer. And so the reason that I think this is really important to talk about is because if you think that your husband got in a car accident and he didn't tell you, or you think that your wife didn't pay a bill and now they're lying about it, that is a way worse relationship blunder than simply, okay, they don't remember what happened. They don't remember the details. My wife never paid a bill late. So therefore, in her mind, it isn't that she didn't pay the bill on time. It's that she must have. But because she can't remember, that's why now I'm alerted to the fact that, okay, there's an issue with her ability to fully pay the bill. So I need to oversee that more carefully, or I need to call the company that got the bill late and ask them, tell them what happened and see if there's a way that they can work with you, obviously, depending on how serious it is. So that's kind of the thinking behind this. It's that you cannot have all of the information, but that also doesn't mean that the person lied. Before we continue, I'd love to stay connected with you. Visit kerrymills.com to join my weekly emails for practical guidance, meaningful perspective, and hope for navigating dementia. While you're there, you can learn more about Dementia Caring with Kerry, the family course, or visit my blogs for thoughtful guidance on the questions that matter as you care for this person you love who has dementia. Now, let's get back to our conversation. And so how you can actually handle that differently would be next time to ask questions with actual curiosity and compassion and belief. So again, using them because they're easy examples, but take any issue that has come up recently where it felt like your husband was lying. I received an email not too long ago about a wife who felt that her husband was lying to her because he had started drinking again. And, he doesn't remember how much he's drinking. On top of that, the drinking is affecting his ability to have good executive functioning and follow through and all these other things. And then, of course, memory loss. So, there's a whole lot of things going on there. And maybe if this was somebody, who had these issues in the past, that's a very legitimate thing that could have been true, but it doesn't make it true for today, right? So instead, what you want to do is you want to ask questions with actual curiosity. So husband comes home, there's a bang up on the car. What would be the natural first question, which is like, are you okay? Did anybody get hurt? When the answer is everybody's fine, no, I'm totally fine, the next question is, oh, wow, how did this happen? He says the shopping cart ran into the car. You simply say, oh, wow, wow, I didn't realize that a shopping cart could make such damage. What store did that happen at? Right? So you're starting to get some of the information, not necessarily saying it's all accurate information, but you're starting to get some of this information, and you might actually learn more by asking with that actual curiosity, being compassionate, and actually believing the person rather than that can't be what happened, no way, and now walking away believing that your spouse is lying. So as we wrap up, the one thing that I want to leave you with is this thought, that when it seems your spouse or your parent is not telling you the truth, they may not be, but they may be telling you what they believe to be the truth. So I've always felt that life is made up of moments, and as we focus on having more good moments, we end up with good days, and those good days can amount to a good life with or without dementia. With that said, I want to thank you for sharing this moment with me. With hope, I'm Kerry Mills. Thank you for listening to Dementia Caring with Kerry, a Better Way.